Hi everyone, welcome to today's LinkedIn session with Jack from Student Beans. So my name is Alice Chance and I'm the careers coach at Manchester and Leeds Codes. We've decided to put together this session today just to give people a helping hand. As LinkedIn, I know I often get told is a really tricky place, especially if you haven't used it before. Jack has a lot of experience with LinkedIn and he's going to be talking through his top tips for sort of getting your profile out there and standing out on LinkedIn. So I'll hand it over to you now, Jack.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I've done a brief introduction on my presentation as to what I've done, but I've been sort of in and around recruitment and using LinkedIn for a very long time. I've tried to cover as much information for as many people as I possibly can, but I know that everybody's situation is slightly different. I don't know whether you're studying full time, whether you're working with a job, and some things will naturally need more time than others. So if there's anything that I go through and anyone's not too sure about, I'm always happy to put a bit of time aside and chat away and see if I can do something a bit more for you. Yeah, I'll run through if that's all right.
Perfect. Thanks, Jack.
Cool. So what am I going to talk about? I'll give you a bit of an introduction as to who I am. I'll talk through setting up your profile because this can be a bit of a minefield. There's certain things that work better than others. There's certain things that are almost a bit of a trick of the trade that can help. And then I'll run through more about how you should interact and network, how you should manage recruiters. As a recruiter, I can give you insight to what will work and tell you some bits on that side. Almost help you learn how to show off using LinkedIn, and then equally just show you some people that have always caught my eye and that you can reach out to. I've spoke to them, that they're more than happy to speak to people and ask questions that anything that I might not be able to cover. So first off, who am I? So I'm a talent acquisition partner at Student Beans. It's a relatively new role for me. But before that, I've been working near enough exclusively in recruitment since 2015. I started off doing a bit more digital and then it became purely tech in about 2015 with May. I specialised initially in web development. Back at the time then, a lot of the courses that were coming out were very much sort of e-commerce development focused, whereas a lot of them have sort of moved to being wider software engineering. And that's sort of how my roles have grown over the years to the point where I was looking after a team and recruiting for pretty much everything across the software development lifecycle. So outside of work, I'm a big ambassador for continued learning. And I think what everybody will be doing with you guys is absolutely great. So I've done an MBA in law and management. I've done a marketing degree and I've done a level 7 in management. And I have learned to code. I will never pretend to be any good. I'll never pretend to really know much more than being able to write a few lines and sort of play around with it. But
I tried to learn as well. I didn't. I probably got to about the same point as you and was just like, no, this isn't for me, unfortunately.
I the point where I was like trying to do like a little bit of a practice website, and I was looking at it thinking, this is naff. Like some of the stuff that I see, this was just nothing compared to like what people were doing. But yeah. I used Colt Steele's sort of Udemy course, and I was a little bit sick of writing about cats. And if anyone's seen the course, they'll probably know what I mean. But another course that I worked through was Harvard University's CS50X, and that was just like a little free additional bit that I did to sort of learn a bit more about programming rather than just some like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So yeah, I'll dive into, I guess, more of your LinkedIn. This session is designed, I guess, to help people know how to use it, and it is a bit of a minefield when you come through. So the first section that is obviously the most important, and you'll know this, is really the about section. It's the cover letter of your profile. So it's the area that you can detail as much as you want, and it can be as personal or as unpersonal or as academic or as professional as you want it to be. I've put in a cover of mine there, but the reason I've put that in is because it's very, very keyword heavy. So when you're trying to attract people to find a job, or whenever you're trying to apply for jobs, if you apply direct through LinkedIn, a lot of the time it'll share your profile. And more often than not, this will be where you can kind of learn a bit more about you. And the keywords that come through, recruiters will search for. So I use it almost on the reverse. So I have our whole tech stack information on, with the idea that if anybody searches for recruiters within that, I'm there, and vice versa. Anything that you guys are all doing, you should be able to sort of delve into and put that onto there. So yeah, definitely make it keyword heavy in and around there. You also want to include a snapshot of your motivations. Some of the best people and profiles that I see on there are really open about sort of why they wanted to get into tech. What drives them to move into it, what drove them in the first place, and what are your ambitions. There's absolutely nothing wrong with putting in there that you want to be in X role in a couple of years, and it doesn't have to be as formal as that. I feel like I'm wording it as if it has to be a cover letter, because it's not. It's about being personal and sort of unique to you. And I guess that leads me on to my last point about the sort of about section. You want to show your personality. I am not anywhere near as creative as some of the people that I see across LinkedIn, and some of the things they get is amazing. There's a lot of people that moan that LinkedIn isn't Facebook, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't show sort of who you are, what you're about, and things like that. There are people that make a living on LinkedIn from being offensive and being as open as possible, and they will get more traction to their LinkedIn profiles than you can probably ever imagine. So it's not necessarily the way to go, but it's sort of don't
an approach.
Yeah, there's nothing wouldn't work for me, but it's I can't knock how people do it, and that's just their personality. They're really open. If you are a bit more refined and more professional, there's nothing wrong with showing that in the profile. Equally, if you love your dog or you love your cat and you post about it, put it in there. It's all about getting people to you and showing in as quickly as possible how much you can get across with that.
Yeah, I really agree with that as well. And I think it's really important for sort of juniors and at that lower level is sort of making that difference and standing out a little bit from other people on LinkedIn, and getting their name out there for, I guess, just being themselves.
Exactly that, because there's a lot of talk about even in your CVs and things about you should put what you do outside of working, and of course you should, and this is a great to separate it. There's more and more people getting into tech, and there's no denying that it's competitive getting that first role, and if you can give that snapshot of what you're about before they even have spoken to somebody else, you're already ahead of the game from what they're doing. Is how I look at it. So the next section is obviously your experience. What's really, really important on this section for me is including key details, not just about sort of what your job title is, but breaking it down into more information. So I've put again another little copy of what mine looks like there. A lot of people will just put sort of talent acquisition partner, or they'll put recruitment consultant or anything like that, but more information about the industries and the sections that you work in make your profile more tangible and will stand out above the rankings on the rest of because of the way the algorithm works. So what I see all the time, and I think it probably is more juniors that are kind of finding the feet that do it, is they'll just put sort of junior software engineer, or they'll put aspiring software engineer, which is great, but you will have your bias in the tech stack that you want to use and that you are using and everything in between. So instead of you just being a software engineer, which is very, very open nowadays, you could be a React or Node engineer, you could be a junior PHP developer, anything that gives that little bit of a hint and makes it more relevant is absolutely perfect. I know a lot of people that be watching this as well are more likely to be working, they might be working another job, they might have done a career change, they might have been stepping into it. Link your GitHub, link your CVs, link any examples you can give into your experience. Just because your experience is in a different industry, you're still working on this, show it off, get it across that this is what you're doing, and sort of add as much as you can in one spot. LinkedIn is becoming as important as a CV can be. And if you get this right, I genuinely think it makes the whole process a lot easier. I think it's also about bridging that gap. So if you're looking for your first role, it's very tough to sort of show exactly what you've done and what you're about, and using your GitHub, using a CV will help that within your profile. But it's all about the keywords. It is all about the keywords. Now, there's a lot of places out there that probably don't understand it as well as some of the better recruiters will, and understand what the differences are. But you're going to deal with hiring managers, you're going to deal with talent acquisition people, and being as direct as you can be about what you've worked on is going to separate you. I find the best example of that is probably in this section that I've put here, where tangibles are king. You might be working on on a project in your course, or you might be working as a junior on a full stack JavaScript course, but you need to put the tangibles to what it is. So what are you actually building? What is the problem you're trying to solve? And more often than not, that's more important than just highlighting one word of a technical point. So you still need it, but you need the context behind it. I see a lot of profiles where it'll just be, it'll be 5 words of sort of the sort of technical stack, which will attract people in. But if you consider it as a job seeking tool, you've drawn them in, but then you've not given them the exact sell to what you were responsible for and the problem was. And that's what everything in tech is about. It's all about solving problems. So hopefully that might help on the experience side. And freelance projects, do not neglect them where you're at. Any personal projects, any project is a project. It doesn't matter if you've built a startup calculator, or if you've built a whole website or a whole product, or whatever it is that you're working on. It shows what you've done. It shows your passion for it. It shows that next step, and all these little things do really add up. So next area on your profile that you really need to look at is your education. Do not finish your education as soon as you graduate a course or as soon as you start finding a job. Tech changes really, really fast, and so should you. It is very difficult. It means that you've almost got to be doing your research at the same time as sort of actually doing your job. And I know it's more to add on, but until you're looking for a new role, it's probably not as relevant. Once you are, say if you finish a boot camp, say if you finish a course, say if you've got your first job and you're looking for the next one, the best place to find it of what you need to be doing is in the job specs. There'll be companies that will be hiring and using the most modern stacks. There'll be some that you don't want to touch, but the ones that are using the best stacks, go onto their website, see what it is that they're working in. If there's anything that doesn't even ring a bell, that's your next list. There's some really good people across LinkedIn who literally show everything that they're studying, and it's almost a self-branding tool for you to be able to get involved in that and to do it, rather than it just being you're waiting for that right moment. You're waiting for the moment that you want to leave and then realizing that you're maybe not there, but you finding that path that you want to do, you can follow it along the way. And the education section is a really good path to documenting everything. If you've completed one course, one project on your course using a different tech stack, document it, get it out there, show what you've done, make it tangible, and show the real problems that you were solving. Again, I'll fly through these because I want to talk more about the sort of interacting networking side, but the key skills is really important. If you've used a new tech, put it on there. If there's something that you're passionate about, put it on there. If you're passionate about a new methodology or you've researched it and you want to get involved in it, put it on there. But there's a really fine line on LinkedIn. And what you can very quickly do is overpopulate your profile with things that you're maybe not as interested in getting into. So if you really want to get stuck into a back-end role, you probably don't want to as much focus on all the front-end frameworks that you've been working on. And you want to isolate within key skills within that one area. Equally, if you're looking at transitioning into being, into DevOps or stepping into, a different role within the life cycle, it's not going to help you having every back-end framework that you've touched on it. Probably far too often people will put everything there, and it's just about making sure that you know what you want to do and basing the key skills around there, because recruiters and hiring managers and everything like that can search up through those key skills. And all that's going to happen is you're going to get approached about the wrong things which you're not wanting, and that can very quickly demotivate you. It can very quickly put you off, and it can affect on the other side. Youssef just put a really good comment in the chat regarding the skills, and you see so many people that are overloading the profile with literally every technology they've used, and it makes them look a little too broad. And that's the perfect example for me. If you are searching and you're looking, there'll be areas which that you understand, but you're not that strong on. You wouldn't want to go into a role on, and it's just about being honest with yourself on them. I think that's a point.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I think it can sometimes be a bit difficult from like a career changer's perspective, as they've held lots of accolades in previous jobs and they've got all these skills. And it almost seems a little bit sad, I think, when they feel like they have to get rid of them if they've already got a LinkedIn profile. But you have to have your LinkedIn profile for the job that you want, not the job that you've got right now or the job that you've had. It has to be looking for, what do you want a recruiter or hiring manager to see you for and see you known for?
Exactly that. And it's for me, it's exactly the same way of, if you're changing careers and you're changing into a new role, and there's so many people that want to do that into tech. Your CV, your cover letter, and your LinkedIn profile do not define you. They do not define what you've done. They don't define where you're going. It's just an aid to help you get there. And the fact that you may have done X amount of years in another industry, it's amazing. It's helped shape you into who you are. And chances are it will help you in that role. A lot of people want the experience that comes with other roles and they like it, but you've got to remember that the job is still the job. And without highlighting exactly where you want to be, you can fall in almost off that a little bit.
Definitely.
And then the last bit on profile, for me, this is actually one of the most important sections that you all need to focus on, especially as an early career, is the recommendations. It's the bedrock of the algorithm in terms of how recruiters search and in terms of how you found and in terms of how your profile sits against keywords on searches. So that in itself is a whole talk, but you want to aim for at least 3 recommendations to sort of kickstart it. You should never, ever stop asking for recommendations. If you find that first role and you stop, you're almost going to limit yourself. Constantly ask. If you ask to aim to get X amount in a year, I usually try and push for about 5 in a year. You've constantly got that trail coming through. And the big part about this is, yes, it will help you now if you get your colleagues, your friends, anybody that you've worked personal projects with, anyone you've done a freelance project to really hone in on what your best skills were. The bit that this is really going to jump you ahead from is a couple of years down the line. And what the reason behind that is because tech moves so fast. So when your friend who you're working with is potentially might be a junior engineer, or they could be a lead engineer that you've done a freelance project with or anything, your recommendations for them will scale the same way they're scaling up with their career. So your recommendations grow as the careers of those around you have grown too. So if you picture that you could very easily progress up into sort of a lead developer role in 4, 5, 6 years, the people that have recommended you have scaled as well. And it doesn't show where they were when they recommended you at what point. You could get to a point a few years down the line where your recommendations is full of engineering managers or DevOps leads or whatever section they've gone into, and it bolsters you up further down the line too. So I help you now.
That's such a good point. I've never even thought about that before. That's such a good point, Jack.
It's something that, like, I think unless you've seen it happen. So I've watched people I when I first started recruitment, there was people that had just joined as well, and they were so passionate about getting recommendations. And now when I look at the profiles, it's all managing directors, CEOs.
Yeah.
When they placed them, they might have been sort of mid-levels. They might have been stepping in seniors, and all of a sudden, through no extra work, your recommendations are worth even more when you're looking at it from like a recruitment point. And that's like a little unhanded bit that might help with it. So I want to go next into interacting and networking. There's no one rule for this. So me giving my opinion on it doesn't mean that you having a different approach or a different opinion will be right or wrong. It's all about what people want to find and what works for you. So you have to be authentic and you have to be optimistic. There are people that will take to LinkedIn when maybe a job search isn't going well and things like that. And I genuinely stick by that. I think it's probably damaging for you to go out and almost be negative about the experience. There are some places that will have bad processes. There are bad recruiters. There's a lot of things out there that can be easy to sort of turn to pessimism, but being who you are and being positive about it is going to step you up a bit. There's only 2 ways of going about getting a job search. You either apply or you're sort of someone's come directly to you for it. And by building this network and by interacting and building the right brand on LinkedIn, you almost reduce the amount you've got to go out because you'll naturally have it coming to you. I think a good point I can really give is finding your own niche. I think this comes back very closely to sort of the key skills on your profile, but there would be very little point in me sort of diving in and trying to contribute on, React communities, because I'm very basic on JavaScript, but I'm very active at approaching things which are all talent acquisition and which are very sort of process driven and helping people do it the right way, because that's what I know. So I'm always open to being sort of involved in as much as I can, but I actively know what I know, and I'm not sort of I'm not ignoring what I don't know to try and look like I'm the finished article, because everybody knows that you're almost not going to be. In terms of reaching out and speaking to people, you have to avoid spamming connections, and you have to almost build your network before you need your network. Hopefully people that are watching this are either, going through the bootcamp, they're going through the courses, and they're currently looking to get to that transition. Worst thing you could do is get to the end and then need it. In reality, you're working through it. You want to reach out to people who you think are influential in your field, people who've got similar passions to you, people who are almost, really care about what you care about. And the line that I've put in there is, don't be the typical "thanks for connecting, are you recruiting" message. It's not that there's nothing wrong with that. That will get you to a point in terms of job applications, but in terms of really using LinkedIn properly, you almost don't want to get to that stage. By the time that you need your network, you want to have already spoken to them. You want to already have built that relationship, whether you're talking about a project and you just ask them a genuine question that might help you, whether you see them post something and you interact and you can give value along that line. It really doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. If you've done something a month, you might know something better than someone that's done it for 10 years. And having that extra comment there could be the difference between doing that. Equally, the people that you can build your network around now and start to interact with, they could very well be the people that help you get that job or help you get the first job or the next job, because they may know people they can introduce you to. They may know people that push you through. And then the last point that I've put is finding groups that are relevant to what you enjoy. There's always, I always get it whenever I post anything that I think, I don't ever want to come across like I'm telling people that I know everything about recruitment, because I certainly don't. I stick by that. Nobody ever knows everything, and some people are not going to like what you've got to say. Some people are going to disagree that you think X framework is better than Y framework. People are going to disagree that you think using a certain testing methodology is different than another area. Don't worry about that. Honestly, don't worry about that. People can disagree. People can prefer another approach. But all that matters is what you want to be involved in and what you're passionate about. And I think getting that across will help the right people figure out what's right for them, what sort of businesses is right for them, and everything in between.
Yeah, really good point. Yusuf just reiterated that as well. So he built his network whilst he was at university, finishing his degree, and he found his first job in his network really naturally. And I think that's one thing that I can never stress enough, is how networking on LinkedIn, how networking at events can really sort of build your career and sort of build your future within technology. There's so many people on there, and you could just, if you start speaking to the right person, you don't know where it's going to lead to.
Exactly that. And it's really obvious when there's a motive behind networking. It's very, very obvious. And it's not that you can't build your network with that, but it's just not as valuable. You're not going to get the honest answer. If you go out looking for a partner, you're not going to find a partner. If you go out just looking to enjoy yourself, you might find a partner. It's the same idea. It's just completely shifted onto finding a job. So next one I want to talk about is building your network with recruiters. This is really, really important. There's a lot of exceptional recruiters out there. There's a lot of exceptionally bad recruiters out there. They are easy to spot. You can tell who genuinely get involved in thought leadership, who genuinely want to get involved in what areas they want to get stuck into. And another thing which does help is the recommendations. And that comes back to what I was saying before about how recommendations grow. But you can very quickly see who knows what they're talking about and who's passionate about it and who has the right sort of connections. The wrong approach for everybody to do is to then just go and connect with every recruiter and think that might help. LinkedIn is a real good way for you to almost look through the window at what recruiters are doing and what agencies and businesses are doing. And you should really focus your search on the right people that you think can help you, the right people who are supporting the right, things that you care about, and people that obviously show that they know it. A lot of roles, bar a few exclusive businesses here and there, are covered with different agencies or different businesses, or you'll have one hiring manager that's internal but might work with an agency. And I've seen it before where trying to go at it in too many different ways can actually come across with the wrong impression. It can look like you're almost spamming it, and it can be damaging to an application. So it's really worth being careful for that. And a very quick tip to weed out the good recruiters, and it's not even necessarily the good recruiters, it's just the recruiters that might be paying a little bit more attention. You'll see a lot of people have emojis at the start of the names. This is an amazing tool to see if somebody that has approached you has done a little bit of extra research than they can. The way, I won't go into it too much, but in the back end with LinkedIn Recruiter, what you can do is people can spam in mail, and people, you're all going to get that. But what you tell very quickly through the emoji is whether that was just a blanket sort of hello first name message, or whether something is a little bit more tailored to you. So it's at this point, that's just a little tip, but hopefully that might help across with that.
Yeah, I don't miss those days of LinkedIn spamming. I will be honest and say at some points I did get to that point in my career where I was just like, I'm going to send 200 messages in 1 minute. So yeah, you have to watch out for that.
Do you know what? It still happens so much more than it should.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of the people that I've placed over the years, I'm good friends with, and they'll just really openly tell me some of the stuff that they get through. And what you want to do on your profile is just put you in as good a position for you to be attracting what you want to attract, and equally put you in a good enough position to be able to spot what's wrong for you. And that's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
One of the things I've put on here is showing off. Showing off is not a bad thing at all. Everybody that will be watching this will be involved and learning to do something that very few people can do, and very few people can do very well. Showing off your GitHub, showing off your portfolio, showing off any reels about what you've done, post about it, talk about it. Don't be embarrassed to post a project if you're only just done it a month, or if you're just starting the course. Don't be afraid to do that. Showing these sort of progressions will actually really build up your network. Sharing your knowledge as well. Join these communities, talk and have contributions, and get stuck in. If you get something wrong, you get something wrong. LinkedIn is a social media website based around jobs. It's not going to damage you if you say something that's slightly wrong. Just be really open and chat about it. I've included a little link here for Cataline, who is certainly not a show off. I know he'll either be watching or we'll catch this link at some point, but he's the perfect example about showcasing your knowledge. He's got an amazing sort of Twitter following. He's got an amazing LinkedIn following, and the way that he approaches it is he'll literally share tips. He'll share something that he knows or something that he finds that's really unique. One of the posts that he shared there was about creating a new branch and making changes in the wrong branch. And as you can see, that got 5,000, 4,500 likes, something like that. And that will do more for him for an application than potentially sitting down and just spamming his CV out will, because people will look at that and it's already bringing the attention to him rather than the other way. That's a huge point for everyone. So it does come back to don't being afraid to post something. If you've got an opinion, share it. If you've got something that you notice that might help people, share it, because you don't know at what point that's going to turn around and jump up.
Definitely. And Parol's just said a good point as well. It's like, don't be afraid to talk about your challenges and being vulnerable. And I think that's a really, I think being out there and open and honest and showing the human side to you as well is really important too. So that's a good point, Parol.
100%. I think Parol is amazing at that. She's
yeah.
I think that was one of the first things I noticed about, I think I saw one of the posts where she was talking about some of the challenges she has, and it's. I think people worry about it too much. The people that may judge a post are probably the people you don't want to work for. There's a lot of great places to work for. There's a lot of bad places to work for, bridging that gap will help you. So then I almost wanted to round it up with just a couple more profiles of people which for me stand out as like great examples of how using LinkedIn is not just about you putting the bare minimum on and sending, LinkedIn quick applications. It's about building your own profile and finding ways that you can bring them to you, which if you're on a course, you've got time to start doing, and you've got the availability to do that. So Adam is amazing. Adam actually bridges his LinkedIn with his Instagram, and he showcased his sort of journey into it. So he's self-taught. I think I want to say he's about 6 months into sort of his first junior role. I would honestly say he's an expert at presenting and showcasing his personal projects more than anything else. It's not often you see too much about his commercial projects, because of course that has to be kept in with what he's doing in his job, but there's no secret to what he's doing, what his skill set is, what he's learning. He's really open about, he spent a weekend learning Laravel. He's really open about that. You wouldn't expect to necessarily dive straight into a job then after spending a weekend learning the framework, but he's gradually working his way on a lot of different things that will almost end up opening him up as a wider developer. He's documenting his journey into tech from very early on, and I think it is huge. I posted a few pictures when I was very much starting to learn a bit of HTML and CSS, and they were probably my most interactive posts, because people want to know what you're doing, and it genuinely does help your brand to show that you're trying and that you're pushing your own boundaries and doing things differently. And then obviously the last one that I do want to jump into, and I know he's put a few comments on, and I think he's brilliant with what he does. Yusuf is one of the software engineers at Moonpig. I spotted his journey probably before he got his first job, and I'm sure it was when he was finishing at uni, and he documented it very similar to how a lot of people do, but he's part of his portfolio is one of his his sort of blog, and he updates and documents his journey through learning. He's really honest about what his strengths and weaknesses are and where he can improve and what he's doing, and his posts are obviously are usually very tailored towards the tech that he's getting involved in. A lot of the tips that I've already gone through about how to make your profile more attractive and everything like that, he's done. He's got everything on there in terms of the certifications he's done. He's really clear about what tech he's worked on in different roles. And I think even when you look at how he involves himself in some of the communities, it's brilliant. A big thing that he asked me to, well, he recommended, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, is basically LinkedIn doesn't need to be corporate or serious. Just be yourself and avoid long corporate bios written in the third person. It's a pet hate of mine. It is definitely.
Yeah, I hate the third person thing. I think we really got told at one point that you had to write in third person on CVs and cover letters and stuff. And it's just like, when I read it now, read people's things, I'm like, you can use the word I. Please use the word I. I want to know what you've done. Like
Jack does not agree. It's again, personal preference. Some things will work for different people, but more often than not, just be yourself. If you're sharing a message with your mate, you definitely wouldn't write in third person. You don't want to. This is a tool for you to find your job, and you're almost portraying yourself. And if you portray yourself in one way, you're going to end up in an environment that is entirely like that. And I certainly wouldn't want to be in a place that's too corporate, too serious, and worries itself too much. So, that's pretty much everything that I've actually got from here. If anybody's got any questions, or if you've got any questions, hopefully I've explained it all, but I'm happy to sort of speak to anybody separately and do things as well.
I've got a couple of questions from people that weren't actually here, and I think it'll be, and hopefully this will help people in the future as well. So quite a few people who obviously do the course aren't openly to their work. How do I word this? Their employees don't know that they're looking for a new job at the moment. So how do they approach that? How would you say to build a profile that sort of can still showcase that they're interested in tech without giving the game away?
That's a really tough thing to bridge.
I know.
So it's so unique to everyone's situation, and it's probably the hardest point to go through. So, I know recruiters that have stepped across into sort of a career in tech, and for them, it was very easy because they sold it as, well, I'm learning what I'm recruiting for. I'm showing it. I'm sort of taking that step. I think it honestly depends on how active you are on LinkedIn to do your job. There would be nothing wrong in showing that you're a fan of football on your LinkedIn. There'd be nothing wrong with showing that you, take walks with your dog every weekend. Then equally, there'd be nothing wrong with showing that in your spare time you like to code. I think it depends on how active you are in saying, this is what I'm going to do, compared to, this is what I've been working on in a bit of my spare time, and this is how. There is no one size fits all with it.
Yeah. Do you think as well, like, so I guess from your perspective, as like a hiring manager and having worked in like tech recruitment, to have that, like when you send someone a direct message, you send that first message, if you let them know they're transitioning and let them know, like, say if I was to message you and say, hi, I'm currently doing Manchester Codes. I'm going to be looking for a junior developer role in 6 months. So I thought we could connect. So I could be stay up to date with your feed or whatever. Would that approach be okay for people?
That's an amazing approach to have. The worst situation to be in is doing that at the end. Doing that at the end of the course. If you get to the point where you graduate and you sat there thinking, well, now's the time. A lot of businesses will plan ahead with what they're needing. For example, we generally have sort of like 3 or 4 months ahead of where we need to be and where we want to be. So that's the best way to go about it. Build the relationships early, and you'll learn quickly then the people that will put time into you. All you got to do is ask them a question and see what they've got going on, what's coming up, and if there's anything you want to specifically get involved in, that's kind of your direction on any projects you've got to do and things like that.
Great. No, that's really good. That's a really good tip of building your relationships early. I really, really like that. I don't know if anyone else has any other questions that they might like to ask. That was just my one that someone had asked me to ask you because they couldn't make the event. But no, that was super helpful, Jack. There's some tips that I'm going to take away from that as well. I was looking at my LinkedIn profile whilst you were talking about it, and I was like, my LinkedIn profile looks rubbish now. But yeah, I think it's one of those things as well that you have to constantly update. Like, even if it's like every couple of months, just have a look at your profile. What have you done? What have you learned? What can you add to your profile? And I think as well, it's almost like trends. There's different LinkedIn trends at different times. So you want to have different things on there, and like some things will seem dated after a bit. So yeah, that was really helpful.
It's exactly that. It's just knowing what you enjoy and what you're involved in. Like there's something I would definitely not do, but it's just because of who I am. But there's some that I'll always follow and always get stuck into, and it's just, you can only do what works for you. You can only be yourself, and I think that's exactly that.
Yeah. Paral's just asked, what's a good headline to have on your LinkedIn profile? I'm always interested in that. Like, what's your sort of thoughts on like LinkedIn profile titles?
I think that probably depends on where you're at. I think there's you can change them to have all sorts. You can change them to being open to work and being really open about it. You can change them to aspiring software engineer. You can change them to whatever you want. There's some bits where, like, there's some people that don't like certain areas, and I've seen more talk recently where putting sort of full stack in that sort of header can sometimes be a bit of a negative, and it's not a negative, but what it means by that is your header should be real clear as to what you are and what you want to do. So where you're at right now, you're going to have a little bit of a bias towards certain things. There'll be certain areas you understand more, there'll be certain areas you don't. I think if you can include that, so if you're aspiring to be a React developer rather than or a JavaScript developer rather than just a full stack developer, and it's that little bit more neat. I'm sorry, to be honest with you, I can't give you like a straight answer with that because it's subjective. But for me, if you want to get into it and you can be open enough with an employer that you're with or anything like that, show it. If you're doing personal projects and you're doing freelance projects, put that on it. Anything that's more tangible is going to be better.
Yeah, I've often been told it, like, you can use that as that little title almost to tell a little story about yourself, it just snapshot of yourself, what you do, what you're into, and what you could bring to a business. which I guess is quite a nice way to put it. But no, thank you for that. Has anyone else got any other questions? Otherwise, we will end for today. But I think that's been really, really useful, Jack. Hopefully, loads of people are going to have loads to take away from that. It was great. I really, really appreciate you coming and joining us today and talking through and sharing some of your LinkedIn knowledge. It is a massive world out there on LinkedIn. So I know it can be really daunting to people. So hopefully this will take a little bit of that away from them. But we'll call it there. I don't think there's any more questions. But Jack, I'll add you into our Slack community. So I'm sure if anybody wants to ask you anything else, they can ask you on there. Feel free to add Jack on LinkedIn as well and just see him at work, I guess. See him putting it into play. But no, that was great. So thank you for joining. Thank you for joining us. If anyone needs to catch up on this video, it is all now on YouTube as well. So feel free to share this, subscribe to our channel. But yes, thanks for joining us today, Jack, and I'll speak to you all soon.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.